Here is the comprehensive rewrite of the provided narrative. It has been crafted with a sophisticated, professional, and rich vocabulary, designed to be suitable for a high-quality narrative commentary, while adhering to safety guidelines and expanding the descriptive language to maximize length and depth. The Declassification. Part 1. The Architecture of Hubris. The definitive instance of irreversible consequence materialized precisely at 17 minutes past the hour of 2 on an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday afternoon in March. It was within this fleeting, crystallized second that Adam Schiff, a figure who had skillfully navigated the treacherous political tides of Washington, D.C. for decades, arrived at the sudden and harrowing realization that he had committed the single most catastrophic miscalculation of his entire professional existence. It is imperative to comprehend that this was by no means his inaugural error in judgment. Indeed, a comprehensive cataloging of his prior missteps would be voluminous enough to fill multiple bound tomes, perhaps necessitating the construction of a dedicated presidential archive merely to house them all. However, such an institution would present a paradox, inhabited entirely by fabrications and hollow narratives rather than volumes of historical fact, even within the fiercely competitive sphere of political subterfuge, given that he had dedicated the better part of 8 years to professionalizing the art of the misleading statement, transforming it from a mere tactical maneuver into a career and a personal brand. This specific mistake stood apart as the singular event destined to dismantle his legacy. The fatal error was firmly rooted in his decision to initiate a calculated offensive against Kash Patel, the newly appointed director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Schiff had operated under the profound misconception that Patel was merely another vulnerable political appointee, the variety of bureaucrat who could be easily coerced into submission through vague accusations and knowing, ominous references to concerning intelligence that Schiff claimed to possess, but could not divulge due to strict classification protocols. This was the antiquated playbook that had served Schiff effectively for years, a strategy predicated on insinuating dark secrets without ever being compelled to produce evidence. However, he had failed to account for a critical variable that would alter the trajectory of history. Kash Patel had not been idle. He had spent the preceding 6 months meticulously securing the declassification of those very documents. Every single page, every redacted line, and every classified memo that Schiff had relied upon to maintain his narrative was now cleared for public release. Every leak Schiff had clandestinely provided to his preferred media outlets. Every falsehood he had uttered regarding the possession of direct evidence for events that never transpired, and every instance where he had stood before television cameras with a grave, concerned expression to misrepresent classified information, had been stripped of its secrecy. As the hearing unfolded, the atmosphere within the Senate Intelligence Committee room shifted perceptibly. With an audience of 52 million citizens observing via broadcast networks, and with the digital ecosystem already disseminating the footage in real time, the trap was sprung. Kash Patel was deliberately and methodically extracting a document from a red folder, the cover of which was explicitly stamped "Declassified for public release." Simultaneously, Adam Schiff's facial expression underwent a complex and devastating transformation that was captured in high definition, traversing an entire emotional journey within the span of 3 seconds. His visage shifted from a look of smug, unassailable certainty to one of genuine confusion, and finally, to the dawning horror that accompanies the realization of being completely and undeniably exposed. It was the specific pallor of a man who realizes he has been caught, not merely accused, but caught with the receipts, fully and completely. The Senate Intelligence Committee hearing room descended into an absolute, profound silence. This was not the respectful quiet of careful attention. Nor was it the anticipatory hush that typically precedes a dramatic legislative reveal. Rather, it was the uncomfortable, breathless silence of witnessing a prominent figure's entire career imploding in real time on national television. Everyone present in that room, along with the millions watching from their homes, could vividly discern the panic written across Adam Schiff's face. It was a visceral moment of realization, an understanding that he had spent the previous 20 minutes attacking Kash Patel's credibility, using his standard repertoire of vague insinuations. While Schiff had engaged in this theatrical performance, Patel had merely sat there, calm and observant, taking notes with a slight, enigmatic smile that should have served as a warning to anyone paying attention. But Schiff had been too blinded by his own arrogance to perceive the danger. Schiff's blindness was a product of his own success. He had been employing this specific strategy for 8 years without consequence. He had cultivated the persona of the concerned intelligence expert, the self-appointed protector of classified information, who had seen concerning things he could not disclose. This tactic had worked exceptionally well on the friendly terrain of cable news, where hosts would lean in with expressions of deep concern. Schiff would gravely nod, claiming he could not say more due to security clearances, before proceeding to leak additional details to his preferred reporters as soon as the cameras were turned off. He had utilized this tactic regarding the Russia investigation, claiming to have seen direct evidence of collusion when none existed, a fact later confirmed when the special counsel spent years finding nothing, despite Schiff's claims to the contrary. He had declared on television hundreds of times that there was direct evidence, yet it was all a fabrication. He had employed this same method with the Nunes memo, labeling it reckless and false, even releasing his own counter-memo. Yet, the Inspector General later confirmed that Nunes had been correct regarding FISA abuses. By the time the truth emerged, the news cycle had moved on, and nobody held Schiff accountable. He had repeated this pattern with Ukraine, coordinating with the whistleblower before denying any contact. He had even fabricated a version of the Trump-Zelensky call, reading invented dialogue into the record, only to label it parody when exposed. Perhaps most egregiously, he had done it regarding the Hunter Biden laptop, knowing it was authentic via FBI verification, yet labeling it Russian disinformation weeks before an election. For 8 years, Adam Schiff had engaged in a cycle of leaking and manipulating, utilizing his security clearance as both a weapon and a shield. He had never been held accountable until this specific Tuesday. His mistake was assuming the game would never change, but he had decided to attack Kash Patel, a man uniquely equipped to dismantle the charade. Patel was a former prosecutor and House Intelligence Committee staffer who knew exactly what Schiff had done. He possessed the authority to declassify the information and had been patiently waiting for this precise moment. Patel possessed the receipts, the physical evidence including phone records, meeting logs, and transcripts. Every lie was documented, every leak was traced, and every manipulation was exposed. With the entire country watching, Kash Patel was prepared to demonstrate with actual documents that Adam Schiff had spent 8 years deceiving the American people. The red folder rested on the table between them, the most dangerous object in the room. To fully understand the gravity of this moment, one must rewind the clock just 2 hours, back to when Adam Schiff still believed this would be another routine performance. He had no idea that sometimes someone eventually brings the receipts. 2 hours prior, Chairman Richard Burr banged the gavel, echoing through the hearing room. "This hearing will come to order," Burr announced, setting the stage for a session examining FBI leadership. Chairman Burr looked down at Kash Patel, who was seated alone at the witness table. There were no lawyers or handlers flanking him. It was just Patel, a red folder, a yellow legal pad, and a water bottle. Director Patel, Thank you for agreeing to testify, Burr stated. Patel leaned into his microphone, projecting a calm, professional demeanor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Patel replied. The gallery was packed to capacity, representing the story of the day. Sitting in the front row was Senator Adam Schiff, looking like a predator, spotting prey. Although not a member of this specific committee, he had been invited back as a special consultant. Everyone knew what that title meant. The Democrats wanted their best attack dog. Schiff looked ready for the fight, having prepared for this moment. He believed he was the hunter, unaware that he was actually the prey. Before Chairman Burr could finish, Schiff interjected, driven by a compulsion to be the center of attention. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to address some serious concerns, Schiff stated. Schiff performed a gesture perfected over years, looking down at his notes seriously, then up at the witness. Director Patel, I hope we can have an honest discussion about your qualifications, Schiff began, letting the word honest hang in the air. I've reviewed your record extensively, your documented loyalty to one individual over the Constitution, he continued. Then came the pivot. I've also been briefed on intelligence matters that raise serious questions about your judgment, Schiff declared. I cannot discuss the specifics in open session, but the patterns are deeply disturbing. It was the assertion of secret knowledge. I know things you don't know. It was a tactic that had worked for 8 years. I have serious reservations about whether you should be sitting in that chair, Schiff concluded. The Democratic side nodded, the Republicans rolled their eyes, and everything was going according to script. However, the script was about to be rewritten. Patel had been listening quietly. When Schiff finished, Patel looked up with a slight smile. Senator Schiff, thank you for those concerns. I'm curious about something you said. You mentioned intelligence briefings. Could you be more specific? Schiff sensed a trap, but could not see the destination. Director, I think you know which briefings? I'm not going to compromise sources and methods, Schiff retorted. Of course, protecting sources and methods is absolutely critical. Patel nodded. So, I'm sure you'd never leak classified information, because that would be weaponizing your security clearance. The temperature in the room dropped. I don't appreciate the insinuation, Schiff snapped. I'm agreeing with you, Patel replied smoothly. Now, you asked about my qualifications. First, I think we should establish baselines for what constitutes good judgment. Would you agree? I suppose that's reasonable, Schiff conceded. Excellent, Patel said, reaching for the red folder. The folder bore the stamp. Declassified. Approved for public release March 2025. Mr. Chairman, may I enter into the record a series of declassified FBI investigative documents regarding media leaks? Patel asked. Without objection, so ordered, Burr said. The Declassification. Part 2. The Anatomy of a Leak. The auditory evidence of the Crimson File being unsealed was faint, a mere whisper of parchment against the burnished timber of the testimonial table, yet, in the hyper-focused acoustics of the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing room, it resonated like a thunderclap. Kash Patel moved with the deliberate, unhurried precision of a surgeon preparing to make the first incision. He did not rush. His attention was fixed entirely on the document in his hands, which he extracted and held up just long enough for the telephoto lenses to capture the bold red stamp. Declassified. This is a declassified summary of the FBI's internal investigation into unauthorized disclosures of classified information, Patel began, his voice maintaining a devastating neutrality. Specifically, this document details the leaks concerning the Steele dossier before its existence was made public. He set the document down and looked directly at Adam Schiff. Senator, you remember the Steele dossier, I assume? Schiff's jaw tightened visibly. "Of course," Schiff replied. "It contained serious allegations about—" Patel cut him off with a sharp correction. "It contained fabricated allegations from a source the FBI determined was unreliable," Patel stated. "The FBI knew this. You knew this from your classified briefings. Yet, in December 2016, detailed information appeared in media outlets, citing anonymous congressional sources." Patel reached back into the folder and pulled out a timeline. "This is interesting," Patel murmured. "Let me walk you through it." December 9th, 2016, Patel read. "You attended a classified briefing on the Steele dossier. The briefing included specific details that were highly classified." He looked up. December 12th, 2016. 3 days later, you appear on MSNBC. That same evening, according to these phone records, you have a 15-minute conversation with a CNN producer. Schiff's face began to drain of color. The realization was hitting him that these were forensic artifacts. December 13th, Patel continued. The very next morning, CNN runs a breaking story, with details that match your briefing almost word for word. Patel paused, letting the implication hang. December 18th, you have a 23-minute call with a New York Times reporter. December 20th. The New York Times runs a story with details that match precisely what was in your classified briefing. Patel picked up a thicker document. These are the FBI's findings. The conclusion they reached is not ambiguous. The pattern is quite clear. Schiff could no longer sit silent. He leaned forward, interrupting with indignation. "Mr. Chairman, this is an outrageous fishing expedition. This is an attempt to criminalize standard oversight work." Patel didn't flinch and simply talked over Schiff. "You were briefed on December 9th. Content from that briefing appeared in the media within days. You had documented contact with reporters. The leaked information matched what you'd been told." He clasped his hands and leaned forward. "Senator, did you leak classified information about the Steele dossier to media outlets? Yes or no?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade, and the room was completely silent. Schiff's mouth opened and closed. He looked to his left for support, but his colleagues were looking down. "Director Patel," Schiff began, "I don't discuss my private conversations." "That's not an answer," Patel interjected. "Did you share information from classified briefings? Yes or no?" Schiff tried again to retreat to bureaucratic boilerplate. "Still not a yes or no answer," Patel noted. The silence stretched on. An eternity in the world of television. Schiff was trapped. He couldn't say yes without admitting to a felony, and no would be immediate perjury given the evidence. So he wrapped himself in victimhood. "Mr. Chairman, this is clearly a political witch hunt." Patel smiled, an expression of almost sad disappointment. "Senator, you can characterize it however you like, but the documents speak for themselves. These are facts." He pulled out another stack of documents. "But let's move on. Let's talk about your claims of having seen evidence of Trump-Russia collusion." Schiff was approaching genuine panic. The collusion narrative was the foundation of his national profile. Patel pulled out a massive compilation of transcripts. "This is a collection of your media appearances. I had my staff go through every interview." He flipped to a page. March 2nd, 2017. Meet the press. Quote, "I have seen more than circumstantial evidence of collusion." He flipped to another. March 20th. Quote, "There is evidence that is not circumstantial." He flipped again. May 15th. Quote, "The Russians had help." Patel kept going, reading quote after quote of Schiff, claiming to have seen evidence. "I counted them, Senator. 227 separate instances, 227 times." He set down the compilation, and yet, the Mueller report found no conspiracy, The FBI investigated and found nothing. No one found this evidence you kept saying you'd seen. Patel looked at Schiff. So where was it, Senator? Where was this direct evidence? Schiff's knuckles were white. Director Patel, if you're suggesting that I misrepresented, I'm not suggesting. I'm stating a fact. Patel interrupted. Patel reached for the next document, one Schiff recognized immediately. This is the transcript of the Gang of Eight briefing from March 1st, 2017. The classified briefing you attended the day before you went on Meet the Press. This transcript was classified for 8 years. I declassified it last month. Would you like me to read what the FBI actually told you? The Declassification. Part 3. The Theater of Fabrication. The quietude that ensued following Kash Patel's proposition was not merely the absence of noise. It was a physical weight pressing down on every person in the room. Adam Schiff found himself staring into the abyss. The document in Patel's hand was the smoking gun Schiff believed would never be found. Schiff's face had turned a stark, waxen pallor. He knew exactly what was in that document and what the FBI had told him. That briefing covered sensitive sources, Schiff whispered. It's been declassified, Senator, Patel replied unyieldingly. Would you like me to read it? Or would you prefer to tell the committee yourself? Dead silence. Schiff was not going to volunteer his own execution. Very well, Patel said, and began to read. Quote, the FBI has investigated multiple contacts. To date, investigators have found no evidence of coordination or conspiracy. Patel looked up. That is what you were told, Senator. No evidence of coordination or conspiracy. You walked out of that room and went on Chuck Todd's show the next day and said you had seen more than circumstantial evidence. Patel leaned forward. Senator Schiff, did you lie to the American people? Yes or no? The room descended into controlled chaos, with reporters typing frantically. Schiff remained frozen. The document was real and declassified. In a desperate attempt, he tried deflection. Director Patel, you're cherry-picking. Am I? Patel interrupted. Let's talk about cherry-picking. Let's talk about the Nunes memo. The mention of Nunes caused a visible flinch in Schiff. Patel pulled out another stack of documents. Congressman Devin Nunes released a memo documenting abuse by the FBI. Do you remember your reaction? I remember it well, Patel continued. You said the memo was misleading. You released your own counter-memo claiming Nunes had fabricated the allegations. Patel held up the Nunes memo and the Inspector General's report. The Inspector General found the Nunes memo was consistent with the underlying facts. The FBI did rely heavily on the Steele dossier. Nunes was right about everything, Patel declared. Were you lying, Senator? Or were you just incompetent? Schiff tried to fight back. The IG report was more nuanced. The IG found 17 separate errors and omissions. Patel shot back. You had access to the same underlying intelligence. You knew he was right. But you told the public he was wrong. Patel wasn't done. He shifted to the next scandal. Let's talk about September 2019. The Ukraine whistleblower. Schiff visibly recoiled. Patel pulled out phone logs and meeting records. September 17th, 2019. You appear on MSNBC. You say, we have not spoken directly with the whistleblower. That was a lie, wasn't it, Senator? My staff had preliminary contact, Schiff began. Your staff? Patel countered. Your staff that works for you coordinated the entire whistleblower complaint. Patel held up the phone records, showing extensive contact. This is the correction you had to issue. Why lie about it, Senator? Why pretend you were a passive recipient when you were actually the architect? But the pièce de résistance was yet to come. And then, there is what you did with the transcript itself. Patel held up the transcript of the Trump-Zelensky call and Schiff's opening statement. You opened the impeachment inquiry hearing. Do you remember what you said? Patel read from Schiff's statement. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent. That is what you said. You made it up. Completely fabricated dialogue, Patel said with disbelief. The actual transcript had been released. Your version bore no resemblance to it, and when called out, you claimed it was parody. Patel displayed the comparison. Show me where they match, Senator, Patel challenged. You made it up whole cloth. That's not parody. That is fabricating evidence. That is fraud. Schiff sat there, crushed by the weight of his own words. He had been exposed as a fabulist, willing to invent reality. But Patel still wasn't done. Let's talk about October 2020, Patel said. And the laptop. The declassification. Part 4. The infinity of lies. The atmosphere within the chamber of inquiry had grown oppressive, heavy with the weight of accumulated deceptions. Adam Schiff sat motionless, his earlier combativeness replaced by a rigid silence. He had been exposed, but Kash Patel was merely clearing the board for the final gambit. Let's talk about October 2020, Patel said, his voice cutting like a razor. Let's talk about the laptop. For years, the laptop had been dismissed. But for Schiff, it was the moment he had leveraged his reputation to suppress the truth. Patel withdrew a document, a timeline of mid-October 2020. October 14th, 2020. The New York Post breaks a story about Hunter Biden's laptop. October 15th. You appear on CNN. You say, we know that this whole smear on Joe Biden comes from the Kremlin. Patel flipped the page. October 17th. You promote a letter signed by 51 former intelligence officials, claiming the story has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. October 19th. You go on MSNBC and say the laptop is Russian disinformation 4 more times? Patel picked up a single sheet of paper. There is just one problem with all of that, Senator. The laptop was real. The FBI had verified it, and you had been briefed on this. In classified settings, you knew the laptop was real, and yet you went on television and called it Russian disinformation anyway. Schiff shifted in his seat. The intelligence community consensus was, he began weakly. There was no consensus, Patel snapped. There was a letter orchestrated by you, Patel continued. And it worked, didn't it? Twitter banned the story. Facebook suppressed it. All because you lied. The laptop was real, Senator. The FBI knew it. You knew it. And you told the American people it was a Russian plot. That is propaganda. The hearing room was now in chaos, but Patel focused entirely on Schiff. He gathered the documents, the Steele leaks, the collusion transcripts, the Nunes timeline, the whistleblower logs, the fabricated transcript, the laptop proofs, and stacked them into a physical tower of deception. He closed the red folder with finality and asked the most devastating question. Senator Schiff, how many times have you lied to the American people using your security clearance as cover? The room went deathly silent. 10 times? 100 times? How many? How many times did you leak classified information, mischaracterize intelligence briefings, and claim to have seen evidence that didn't exist? Schiff stared at him, paralyzed. You've spent 8 years positioning yourself as the defender of truth, and the entire time, you were the one lying. Patel leaned forward with profound disappointment. You wrapped yourself in the flag while spreading propaganda. You accused others of the exact crimes you were committing. I've seen good people make mistakes, but what you did was systematic. It was deliberate. You lied to the American people because you knew they couldn't check your work. Until now, Patel pushed the red folder across the table toward Schiff. So I'll ask you one more time. How many times did you lie to the American people, Senator Schiff? Adam Schiff stared at the folder like it was a venomous snake. He looked at his staff, at the committee members, at the cameras. He had nothing. No answer, no defense. Patel had the receipts. Schiff tried to speak. Director Patel, I think you're mischaracterizing. Which document did I mischaracterize? Patel shot back. Which timeline is wrong? Silence. I've shown you evidence. You haven't denied them. So tell me, Senator, which part did I get wrong? More painful silence. Chairman Burr finally spoke. Senator Schiff, do you wish to respond? Schiff took a trembling drink of water. Mr. Chairman, Schiff said weakly, I believe this hearing has devolved into a political attack. It was a weak defense, and everyone knew it. Schiff stood up to leave. But Patel called out, Senator, these documents will all be posted online within the hour. The American people can read them for themselves. They don't have to take my word for it. They can see the receipts. You spent 8 years lying because you thought people couldn't check your work. Now they can. The Declassification, Part 5. The Verdict of History. The 120 minutes that succeeded the session were a period of absolute digital chaos. A cataclysmic shift in the information ecosystem. Before Schiff had even left the building, clips were saturating the internet. The calculator moment was rendered insignificant. This was the systematic destruction of a career. The clip of Patel asking, How many times have you lied? Accumulated 68 million views. The comparison of the fabricated transcript garnered 89 million views. Conservative media outlets went nuclear with headlines like, Schiff destroyed by declassified evidence. Conversely, the liberal media establishment found itself in an impossible position. They tried to defend him, but the documents were real and authentic. One CNN analyst admitted the documents were concerning and difficult to square with Schiff's past statements. Social media was far less forgiving. Number Schiff lied trended at #1 worldwide. Accounts that had supported him fell silent or turned critical. 90 minutes after the hearing, Schiff's office released a defensive statement accusing Patel of a coordinated smear campaign. But the statement failed because Patel hadn't selectively declassified anything. He had declassified everything. The receipts were public, and they proved Patel right. The first week was a political bloodbath. The Los Angeles Times published a devastating editorial. The San Francisco Chronicle called the evidence troubling. The Senate Ethics Committee announced a preliminary inquiry, a killer blow indicating serious substance to the allegations. Polling data was brutal. Schiff's approval collapsed to 31%, and 72% of voters believed he had lied. By week 2, Katie Porter emerged as a primary challenger, releasing a video dissecting Schiff's failures. She raised millions from those who felt betrayed. Week 3 brought humiliation to the Senate floor. Republicans forced a vote to remove Schiff from the Intelligence Committee, and 14 Democrats broke ranks to vote against him. The final vote was 64-36. His career was effectively over. Schiff gave a defiant speech, but nobody applauded. By month 2, more documents were released, showing an 8-year pattern of leaks and manipulation. By month 6, Adam Schiff announced he would not seek re-election, choosing to quit rather than face final humiliation. Katie Porter went on to win the election. Schiff left the Senate in disgrace, exposed as a liar and fraud who had weaponized classified information. It all happened because he attacked Kash Patel, failing to realize that this time, someone had declassified the receipts. 6 months later, Kash Patel addressed recruits at the FBI Academy. A recruit asked if he felt bad exposing Schiff. No, I didn't feel bad, Patel answered. He spent 8 years lying. Someone had to stop it. I just declassified the documents. He destroyed himself. Another recruit asked if the strategy was risky. "Sunlight is the best disinfectant," Patel said. Schiff's operation depended on secrecy. "I brought transparency. If the truth destroys you, the problem isn't the truth. The problem is you." "I think America learned something," Patel added, "that when someone tells you they've seen classified evidence, to be skeptical, ask for proof." Adam Schiff spent 8 years thinking he was untouchable. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever. A year later, the Schiff hearing became a case study in ethics classes. The era of "I've seen concerning intelligence" was effectively over. The public demanded receipts. Adam Schiff disappeared from public life, his legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. Kash Patel remained FBI director, continuing to fight corruption. The truth had destroyed Schiff, not political attacks, but the simple, documented, declassified truth. He had played a game of "I know things you don't know," and someone finally called his bluff with the authority to declassify. Kash Patel had shown the receipts to 52 million people. The receipts told the story of a man who had lied for so long he forgot people could check his work. That is what ended Adam Schiff's career. Just the truth, finally declassified and undeniable.